What's up, guys? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ted Rath. I've spent the better part of the last 2 decades working in the NFL in a variety of roles: strength and conditioning coach, head strength and conditioning coach, director of strength training performance, all the way up to vice president of player performance. So I've worked in a variety of roles for a variety of teams, been with 4 different NFL organizations, and have learned a tremendous amount. So what are we doing today? We're going to come to you weekly with an impact player injury report. A lot of you are playing fantasy football, or you're just sitting at home enjoying the great sport of football because it teaches us so many life lessons. So what I want to do is come to you each week, drop a couple nuggets of information on some of the players that might be dealing with impactful injuries that will definitely impact their team and their ability to win or lose a football game. First and foremost, it's week 1. So what do we want to talk about? We want to talk about what it's like for an NFL organization, a team coming out of training camp going into week 1. There's a lot of things that you have to consider. Number 1, training camp, which lasts around 5 to 6 weeks. You have 90 players. Ultimately, that 90 players gets trimmed all the way down through roster cuts to 53 active members. There's also a 16-member practice squad that equates all the way up to 69 members on that roster that you'll carry through the course of the regular season and into the postseason. But with that, as you trim from 90 to 53, one component that happens very often is you look at a team that is used to practicing with 90 players, they keep the same workload and they go into the regular season week 1 with 53. A lot of times you actually add a practice day. So why I'm telling you this is to keep track of those teams that you might see a little bit lethargic, maybe coming out somewhat slow, because a lot of times they crush their team with a high workload week 1 because everyone's excited. You're getting into real football. It's regular season. These games matter. Every game matters in the NFL. So you see how these teams come in. That's one variable to keep in mind, because as you see these teams either sustain success through the course of the season or start out really slow and then kind of rebound as you go, it will give you a little bit of an insight into probably how their training camp came. Now, the other factor is injuries, total number of injuries. How have rosters been impacted? Because if you're dealing with a number of injuries, that's going to have a trickle-down effect. Take your wide receiver room, for instance. If you have one wide receiver that gets injured in its regular season, you might only carry 5 on your active roster. Those 4 receivers have to take on the workload of that one that's missing practice, missing gameplay, and missing reps, but they also have to continue to fulfill their roles on special teams and some of the other things. 53 sounds like a lot, but it's really challenging to field a team and to make sure you're dispersing that workload evenly so that you're not overworking guys, but you're still getting the right players to football so they can score points, and then on the defensive side so they can stop the opposing offense. So with that, a couple big name players. Last night, unfortunately, you saw it. Jordan Love. We're hoping and praying that it's not an ACL. The mechanism was one with rotation where it definitely could be an ACL. The other factor, it could be a patellar dislocation, kneecap dislocation. So you look at the mechanism, a lot of rotation, heavy rotation with a heavy defensive lineman on top of him. So as he goes into that rotation and he's taking on the brunt of that force from the defensive lineman, those are components, unfortunately, where the knee does not look very stable. Could be a dislocated kneecap all the way up into an ACL. If it's an ACL, that timeline, it's going to be the season, unfortunately, for the Packers. And all the way down to the lower limb, you look at the ankle, that's a mechanism for a high ankle sprain as well. So you look at that, all bad news for the Packers. Unfortunately, we're hoping and praying that it's not those things, but looking at that, we'll continue to look until we get the prognosis. So from that, what are 2 impact players this week? First one, Christian McCaffrey. He's dealing with a soft tissue injury. He is a veteran player who has put up incredible numbers. The guy's an incredibly impactful player. He's explosive. He can change the complete dynamics of a football game, and he can win and lose you games in fantasy football or in real NFL football. So Christian McCaffrey's dealing with a calf injury. It's a soft tissue injury. What he has going for him, this is a positive. It's a primetime game. Why is that a positive? He's playing at 5 p.m. local time. So his circadian rhythm, his personal body clock is used to that 5 p.m. time. It's going to be on the West Coast. He has opportunities to hydrate and to fuel. A lot of times when you're dealing with soft tissue injuries, hydration comes into play very, very importantly, because the tissue needs to function, but it needs to function when it's in a hydrated state. Take beef jerky, for example, very breakable. Take a very hydrated piece of meat, that's much more pliable and durable. So you look at that, it's very similar within the human structure, within the muscular tissue that we carry within our body. So he has all day to fuel, but that's also carbohydrate ingestion. It's everything that's going to help that water bind and stay within the muscular cell. So that's all going to help. So I would say play him. I have no hesitation because he is a veteran player. He understands his body. The one thing to keep in mind, though, that does increase the risk of a compensation injury on the opposite limb. You're dealing with a soft tissue injury, specifically on the lower extremity, the lower body. that sometimes places a huge amount of stress on the opposite limb. So just keep an eye out for that. And then they're going to have to manage him. You don't want to throw him out there to a high load. So making sure that they take a step progression, a small progression, but they progress the load slowly. The next one, Puka Nacua, another primetime game. This is a big factor because they're a West Coast team. LA Rams traveling all the way across the country, going to the Detroit Lions. That's going to be 5 p.m. kickoff roughly for their local time zone. Once again, their body clock, their internal body clock, their circadian rhythm. That's great for the LA Rams. The Detroit Lions, by the time that game ends, it's almost midnight. They're tired. So once again, if the team goes in, the LA Rams, with proper fueling strategy, they're going to have a great opportunity to go out there and really have those players available. What they diagnosed in early August was a bursitis. Sometimes you'll have an impact with the knee. A lot of times you'll see a player, specifically a wide receiver, jump for a ball, land on the knee, and you develop all this fluid. So it's swelling, it's uncomfortable, it's really painful. Part of that, though, that happened over a month ago. He should be in a good place to take on a full workload. So same thing. I think Puka should be good to go. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you click like, hit subscribe, keep coming back. We're going to do this weekly, but keep showing up, keep attacking. Good luck this week.